basic difference between APA style 7th edition and the previous editions. Let's look at the basic difference between the APA referencing style 7th edition and the previous editions. We need to understand that the previous editions have similarities, even though every fresh edition, every new edition has changes. But the 7th edition has major changes that differ from what you used to have. So let's look at that. First of all, what is referencing style? Referencing is one of the most crucial aspects of paper writing. It is the process of acknowledging the original source of ideas and works that are not the author's own. References are used to direct readers to the original document cited in a work. That's what references do. There are generally two key elements in referencing. That is, an in-text reference, which shows the reader that a particular concept, phrase, or idea within a work is from someone else's work. Then a complete reference list, which provides the full citation details for all sources cited in a research paper or academic writing. So we're looking at two key elements here. The in-text referencing, the one you do while writing the work within the article you're writing, and then the referencing list done at the end of the entire work, that comes at the end of the work in form of list of references. That is the list of all the people you cited their works or you referred to their works. So remember, we are looking at the APA style, but there are several referencing styles which are used in writing research papers, among which are modern language style, that's the MLA style, Chicago style, Oxford style, and Harvard style. One of the most popular of these referencing styles is APA style, that's the APA style, the one we are focusing on. The full meaning of APA is American Psychological Association, that's APA. So the referencing style is provided by American Psychological Association, and this is a widely accepted referencing style in social sciences and other fields such as education, business, nursing, and others. You know, all APA citations contain four main components: author, date, title, and retrieval information. So the APA referencing citation format requires the use of parentheses within the text rather than endnote or footnote. In the APA referencing format, you need to understand that citation within the text provides brief information, usually the name of the author and the date of publication. This refers readers to a specific place at the end of the paper where they can find a list of sources of works quoted or mentioned in the paper. The APA style has 7 editions, but the 5th and the 6th editions are still very popular. The very first edition of the APA style was published in 1952. In fact, that first one went through 2 revisions. The first revision was in 1957. The second revision was in 1967. Since then, the APA style has produced 7 editions. From that first edition to today, they have 7 editions. We are looking at the 7th edition. That is the difference between the 7th edition and previous editions. Of course, basically, we are looking at the most recent editions. That is the difference between the 7th edition and the 6th and the 5th edition. Basically, we want to show you the difference in terms of citation, not in other aspects of the manual, not in other aspects of the APA manual, that is the APA style referencing manual, but in terms of citations. You know, the reference styles don't just talk about only citation, they also discuss things like page formatting style, they talk about point size, they talk about arrangement of maybe project works or articles, how you're going to arrange the subheadlines. They talk about the size of the subheadline, the headline, and all that. That is apart from citation. But our main focus here is on citation, not on page formatting, not on arrangement of pages, not on font size or font type and all that. So let's see the basics. The APA style has 7 editions, but the 5th and 6th edition, as we said, are still very popular in various institutions of learning and research groups across the world. The 5th edition of APA referencing style appeared in 2001, and then the 6th edition was released in 2009. The most recent edition, which is the 7th edition, was released in 2019. There are several important differences between the 7th edition and previous editions of APA referencing style, but the most basic ones are observed in the area of citations and reference lists. Now here are the basic differences. Place of publication. There's a major difference in terms of place of publication. Now in the APA 5th edition, state or country where a book was published is not required in the reference list, especially if the city is famous for publishing. For instance, New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco. But in APA 6th edition, if the city is outside the United States, a country is always required in the reference. For locations in the United States, the APA 6th edition requires that you give city or state using standard postal abbreviations for states, except when the publisher is a university or university press whose name includes the name of the state or province, e.g. Minneapolis, University of Minneapolis Press. Just like in Nigeria, if you have, for instance, a state university like Enugu State University, and they have a press and you say Enugu State University Press, you wouldn't need to put the state and the city again in the place of publication because the name of the publisher already has the name of the state. But then the 7th edition changes all that. In the 7th edition of the APA style or APA style, the location or place of publication is no longer required. It is no longer required. Here is what the new style in the 7th edition looks like. For instance, let's look at this example. It says Owamalam EO 2012, Data Analysis Research Project Writing. That's the title of the work. A Practical Approach. Data Analysis Project Writing, a Practical Approach. The place of publication is Owerri, Top Class Agencies Limited. Now, the next example there says Wima RD and Dominic JR, 2003, Mass Media Research and Introduction, Belmont, CA, California. What's what? Now in the 7th edition, which is the newest edition, you have it this way: Owamalam EO 2012, Data Analysis Research Project Writing, a Practical Approach, Top Class Agencies Limited. That's the publisher. You don't need to put Owerri, which is the city where it was published, or even the state, Imo State. Wima RD and Dominic JR, 2003, Mass Media Research and Introduction, Wadsworth. Now you don't need to put the city or the state again, like Belmont, California. That's Belmont, CA. You don't need that again. That's the 7th edition. That's a major change that the 7th edition has brought to the APA style, to the APA style. Now let's look at this. Multiple authors. In the APA 5th edition, et al. Is used after the 6th author's name when there are 7 or more authors involved in a work. Whereas in the APA 6th edition, what is inserted is a modified ellipsis between the 6th and the last author, removing all names in between. However, in the 7th edition, which is the newest edition, up to 20 authors' names can be provided in the reference list at the end of the work. You don't use et al. Or ellipsis after 6 or 7 names. You list up to 20 names of authors. Also, in the in-text referencing with 3 or more authors, there's another major change in the in-text referencing. In the in-text referencing, you can now shorten the names with et al. Right from the first citation, unlike in the other editions where you list out all the authors at the first instance before shortening them in the subsequent citations. That's how it used to be. If you are citing the works of authors where you have 3 or more authors, you cite the names of all the authors. That's how it is in the previous editions. Even if there are up to 6 authors, you mention all their names in the first time you are citing them, then subsequently you use the first name and et al. Now it has changed. The 7th edition has changed that. In the 7th edition, if the names are 3 or more, you only include the first author's name and you use et al. For instance, here you look at the examples here. We have Vaughan, Jacquet, and Baker, 2009, 3 names, 3 authors. But the right thing now to do is Vaughan et al., 2009. You have Fayel, Canel, Vogel, Carrella, Moraj, and Billiou, 2019. But now, what you have in the in-text referencing, according to 7th edition, what you have to put there is Flayel et al., 2019. That's the first author's name. Citing online sources That's another place you have a major change brought about by the 7th edition of the APA style. In the APA style 5th edition, database names are included when citing journals from online sources, and that is where the database name is available. APA 5th edition, like previous editions, requires a retrieval date and a URL in any reference to a source accessed online. For instance, for references to online journals, the name of the database where you access the journal is mentioned. It is required. In the APA 6th edition, there are several changes to how online sources are cited in the references. In the APA 6th edition, database names are not included. The homepage URL of the journal is used instead. If a DOI, what they call digital object identifier, is available, it is used instead of the URL. That's what the 6th edition did. Now, that is it. The 6th edition advises that you use a DOI because it normally leads to articles that are not likely to change. Articles probably in journals that are not likely to change, whereas the URL leads to articles that may likely change in future. Probably it could be edited by those who wrote them, maybe in newspapers or blogs and all that. So the 6th edition advises that you use the DOI. And then in the 6th edition, a retrieval date is not required unless you are citing a source that is likely to be changed or updated frequently. That is why the DOI link is required. That's why the DOI link is recommended by the 6th edition. If no DOI is available, then you provide the URL. However, the 7th edition has changed all that. In the 7th edition, the DOI is formatted the same as URL. The label DOI is no longer required. Here is how it's done now according to the 7th edition. If you look at the examples we have here, you will see how the DOI used to be stated and how it is currently being stated. You will see that it is formatted the same way as the URL. That is how the DOI is formatted. It has changed all that, what you used to have. Now look at the other changes that the APA 7th edition style has brought. The other major changes. Now look at this. It says the use of retrieved from. Now retrieved from is a popular way of stating where you got a material online from, but that has changed. When citing online sources, retrieved from is no longer required before the URL, except a retrieval date is needed. The website name is included unless it's the same as the author, because there are websites that where you don't have a separate author's name, you use the website name. If the website name is the same as the author's name, then you don't write the website name separately again. But what the 7th edition is saying is that the website name is included in the reference of such online materials unless the website name is same as the author. Then the web page titles are italicized. Here are examples. It is wrong to say Pittman M. Sheehan K. 2015 October sprinting a media marathon uses and gratifications of binge watching television through Netflix. Retrieve from, you put it before the URL, but now you no longer put retrieve from. All you need to do is when you finish writing what you want to write, and then italicize the web page title. After that, you now put the URL. Ebooks. For ebooks, the format, platform, or device is no longer included in the reference, and the publisher is included. Here is an example. You will see that this example we have here, Brooke M. 2009, Women in Early British and Irish Astronomy, Stars and Satellites. Look at the ebook format here. It's here, Kindle version, but now it's no longer required. Use of gender-neutral pronoun. That's another major change that the 7th edition has brought. The APA reference style has endorsed the use of singular, they, or their as a gender-neutral pronoun. So this endorsement is now contained in the 7th edition, which is of course the newest edition of the APA referencing style. Instead of using he or she while referencing an author, you now use they. Now look at these examples. Before you could say a researcher's career depends on how often he or she is cited. Now you say a researcher's career depends on how they are cited. Before you could say a journalist should know how he or she should remain safe while investigating stories. Now you say a journalist should know how they should remain safe while investigating stories. Use of descriptive phrases. The APA 7th edition introduced changes in the use of adjectives. Instead of using adjectives as nouns to label groups of people, you now use descriptive phrases in describing people. Now look at examples. Instead of saying the poor, you say people living in poverty. Instead of saying the governed, you say people who are governed. Use of age range. Now the 7th edition also brought a new way of using age range. Instead of broad categories, you should use exact age ranges that are more relevant and specific. Now the 7th edition is saying you can now put this statement this way: people in the age range of 65 to 75 years old. That is what the 7th edition has brought. Now look at the next one. Use of first person personal pronoun. Very interesting. This is a major change. The APA 7th edition recommends using first person pronoun I when referring to your own actions or reflections. The primary reason for this is that writing in the third person can create ambiguity in your writing. For instance, if you used to put it this way as recommended in the previous editions, the author decided to study students in rural areas. The researcher employed assistants to help in distribution of questionnaire. Now you can put these statements this way: I decided to study students in rural areas. I employed assistants to help in distribution of questionnaire copies. That is the use of first person personal pronoun in describing what you did, decisions you took inside the work. Now these are major changes the APA Style 7th edition has brought that you need to know. But note that it is not automatic. There are journals that you may want to submit your article to. They may still be insisting on the 6th edition, or some departments or faculties, some institutions, they may still be sticking to the 5th edition or 6th edition. So you have to find out the APA edition that the institution that you submit the article to is using, the department that you're writing the thesis or project work for is using, or the journal that is assessing the paper is requesting. So you check the edition of APA reference style they are using, and then you stick to that, because it is not automatic that whenever you're writing you use the APA 7th edition because it's the newest. So you have to find out what the examiner or the institution that will accept your academic writing or the publishers of the journal are using, then you stick to that particular edition that they're presenting.